experience. And so it's equally valid. There isn't a this or that. It's all of it. And when you allow for all of it to play out, this is when you really start to touch the magic, where these things don't need to be avoided. They can be allowed because it shows you a deeper truth. It shows you more of what you're actually looking for.
So aren't you ever afraid that people misinterpret? Yeah, you just said people hear their own version of what you are telling.
Yeah.
This could be made into a dogma or made into a set of life rules which my ego can use just to avoid pain and start yelling at everyone.
Yeah. In a way, this would be, one of the fears that I have in doing what I'm doing is the misunderstanding of my role in this. Because for me, I see how monumentally unimportant this character of me is in this discovery. And to assume that I'm saying this and not that, and this is true about what I'm saying or this isn't true, I think is missing the point. I'm not trying to solidify what is truth with the language that I'm using.
You're not here to defend any message. Or
yeah.
No.
Yeah, and I think that we just kind of missed the point. And it's unavoidable. It's going to happen. But again, the sincerity within me that moves is still going to move. Of course it's going to be misunderstood. That's part of it.
You're never willing to adjust what you're talking about a little bit so maybe it attracts a bigger audience or more?
I've certainly played that game in subtle and obvious ways and seen, that it's not really what I'm looking for. It's not really what I'm interested in. It kind of covers up a deeper sincerity for me. And I always return to the simplicity of this sharing. That really is like this authentic love that just simply wants to bow to people and say, I love you, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what you're going through. I love you. If you'd like to rest with it, then let's do that. But none of this idea of I'm this and you're that, or I know and you don't. That's just nonsense.
So when someone starts worshiping you, you immediately cut that off, say, don't be so silly, or come on, stand up, don't kiss my feet, or whatever silly games are played in these guru-disciple roles.
Yeah. I mean, again, I've had such experiences and different responses to different experiences according to what I intuitively felt. Because I understand the deep sincerity of the play of a student honoring the play of a teacher. I understand the heart in that. But again, someone can see that and then they interpret it how they interpret it. And so they don't really see what's happening. They project onto it and turn it into something that it's not.
If it's sincere that I bow to you,
right,
nothing wrong.
Because when that might happen in its play, I don't see it as anyone bowing to me. It's like when people tell me thank you, I don't feel like they're talking to me. When they say, oh my goodness, that was amazing, this changed my life, they're not talking to me. It just passes through because I'm not doing anything for them. They're talking to themselves.
They're thanking life.
They are. And we all do that. It's like, for example, every love song written isn't really about another person. It's about the love that is within the being that's looking for love. And so when someone says, oh my God, I love you, I know they're not talking to me. They're speaking to love itself. And so the biggest way to get lost in all of that is to think it's personal. To think that you're the one that did something. And that just kind of entraps you in a state of separation.
Strange thing is, or the good thing is, that a lot of great artists get to know this. Yeah. Even Beethoven didn't want to sign his symphonies with Beethoven anymore. Yeah. It's a gift from God, he said. How can I claim?
Exactly. I love this.
Yeah.
Because for me, the comedy, it's like there's a breath that's happening right now, and I'm not doing that. Right? Tiger is not breathing. It's given. And if I can't take credit for that breath, how can I take credit for anything that comes after that breath? That's complete insanity for me. It's absurd to think that the poetry that's written, the melody that is expressed in my being, that is obviously not who I think that I am. It's life expressing itself. In the same way that an apple tree might want to take credit for its apples. That's absurd. It took the entire universe to create one apple, and the tree just stood there. And so it's all of life that creates these things, and the character of me is simply an instrument for life to move. And the more that I get out of the way, which is the more I see through the illusion of myself, then the more love there is to flow. And so this becomes the journey, is to continually see the non-truth of my own being so that the truth can move. And I think that's kind of what we all want in some ways. We want to get out of the way. And so this is the point, is to see how we are in our own way so that life can return to a state of flow that shares.
It's great when we watch a nature documentary. The voiceover says, well, the ant now decides to go left. I start laughing. I think you can see in the animal and the insect world that there's no one inside the ant who decides to go left or right.
Right. It's like a flock of birds. They all turn.
Yeah, they go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they start to explain, yeah, but it's the first one who flaps with his wings to the left and the rest knows.
Right. And this is the comedy. I mean, and the thing is I don't know. I don't know. And what I see is sometimes when I think I know, I find out that I don't know. And sometimes I get really convinced that I know, and then I really find out that I don't.
Yeah.
And so I can't trust even what I think I know, because there's been too many direct experiences of finding out that I don't. And realizing that I don't know helps me return to what I do know, which is right now, which is this moment. This is what's real. And so I can let go of everything that I think I know, which isn't real. It's not here. It's not alive. It's not present. And so that's the invitation. And one way is to get clear about what you actually know, and then trust what you actually know, rather than what you want to know or think you know or hope you know.
And how is that with other people? You know, they have expectations of you. They have thoughts about you. They think they know who Tiger Singleton is. How do you work with that? Or is that a strange question?
I watched the show. I watched the show. Because in the same way, I can see that play inside of myself. That projects outward, that thinks it knows other people, that thinks it believes in its shoulds or should nots. And these things are always collapsing. And so in my direct experience of the disappointment, it teaches me to let go. It teaches me that I don't really know that. And so the naturalness of my being is a natural mirror for other people to see what they think they know. It's like that's the perfect teacher. And this is the thing about our naturalness of being. I think in some ways we have like this social or even spiritual construct that says, well, when people wake up, then it will look like this, and then everyone will get along, and then we'll all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. And I don't see that as the reality. I see that the way that it is the teacher, is the perfection. The conflict that shows itself is what exposes the love. It exposes the peace. And so trying to get rid of these things, I don't think is the point. I think that the point is to allow it to be what it is and see what it's showing you. Because to really discover the peace within yourself means that you let go of trying to control out here. And then in that, everything becomes peaceful. You see that everything's kind of playing its perfect role. And so when somebody says, oh, I know I said I'd do this, but I can't. Okay, this is what's happening. That's part of it. It's not you're interrupting my self-importance or you're in the way. It's this is what's happening. Thank you for letting me know. Or not.
And the mother-in-law who thinks that I'm stupid and I will never achieve anything.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, what's awesome about that?
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, tell me.
Well, you get to see what you see in that. Because here's the thing, if your mother-in-law called you a pickle, would that bother you?
No, because I know I'm not a pickle.
Exactly. And so when somebody judges you and it bothers you, it's because you believe it. You believe there's truth to it. And so they are helping you see what's inside that is denied within yourself. And so that's your opportunity to clarify that. And this is when your enemy becomes your friend. You see that they're not really out to get you. They're just being what they are. They're doing what they're doing, and then you see. You decide what it means, what they say. You decide if it's true.
Yeah.
Because it's how you see yourself.
If it was said in Arabic or another language I don't understand,
Exactly.
I would just watch.
Yeah, and you know what? This opens up such a great door into the humility that this is okay. This is okay that we have this self-judgment. This is okay that we think that we're not enough. This is okay that we're perceivably doing it wrong. This brings us to a point of a deeper sincerity, to acknowledge that, yeah, this pain is there. Yeah, this inadequacy is there. Because that's the doorway. It shows you something more profound. And so try and pretend like, oh, no, I'm not this, and you're an idiot for saying that. You can move into this, you know what, thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks, I will see what I can do about it.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't necessarily need to be rejected unless it's rejected, and then that becomes its own experience too.
Yeah.
Essentially saying that these things don't have to be pushed away.
And is there any need for or value in psychotherapy, do you think?
You know, there's a great quote. I think it was from Alan Watts, but he might have attributed it to somebody else. But he said, the one who thinks that they should have their head examined should probably have their head examined.
It's true.
And so in this, I would say you can't get it wrong. If that's sincere, then explore it. You know, if that seems like it offers some sort of solution, then follow that sincerity. I can't see anything that would be misguided about that, because I was just thinking about this the other day, the play of psychology, but that has its place, just like everything else.
Of course.
And it can be quite the trap to deny aspects of the play, of reality, whether it's just doctor or medicine or whatever, to hold on to a spiritual idea or to hold on to some sort of ideology that says, nope, I'm going to reject this because I'm this, rather than opening yourself up and say, okay, well, what's the most sincere thing here? What's the most natural thing here? And then see where that leads you. It's not a predefined answer. It's not, it'll be this or it'll be that. Can you open up to what's sincere?
Okay, let's take another example. Ayahuasca. It's a big thing now.
Yeah.
The medicine plant. Maybe we can find it over here somewhere. We can start.
I'm clueless on how to make it.
Yeah. Of course, you could say that has its place, but it's being offered as being the doorway to enlightenment or the path.
Of course it is.
Yeah, because they want to get people in.
Well, that's the game. Is that there's something that's offered as the answer, and then you find out that it points you to the answer, and you see it wasn't really the answer. And the more you think it's an answer, then it becomes its own addiction. It becomes its own God. Which shows itself as a false God in its own way. But like all things, it's a two-edged sword. And so you can either allow it to serve or destroy. And so again, go into it with sincerity. I've never experienced it myself. I'm not particularly interested in it.
They tell me the plant will call you when it's time.
Yeah. Yeah, and it may not be. You know, and so you get to find out.
So you're not against anything that is being offered in this spiritual world, in this world of self-inquiry?
I don't even know if it's an issue of against or for. I think it's an issue of I don't know. I know my experience. Do I know your experience? No.
So what could work for you?
Exactly.
Doesn't work. Could not work for you.
And what I can communicate is what works for me is a deep sincerity. is rather than doing what other people want me to do, looking inside and asking myself what's true, what's sincere.
And could you know, or do you know, if people are sincere in visiting you?
No.
And does it bother you? If
No.
there's, because there's some teachers who say, well, I only want sincere students who come to me with a real urge to wake up.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's, I guess, the flavor in that of the invitation, inviting a sincerity. But whether I know if they're sincere or not, I can't really say that. And to even try and figure it out sounds kind of exhausting. I think it would just be another thing that I would find out that I don't really know. And again, this eliminates a lot of the frustration or disappointment in this sort of offering. Again, the idea that I have something for you, or I know something that you need to know, is exhausting to me. It's just not about that. It's like, for me, the idea that I'm a healer or that I'm a teacher implies that I know what you need. And I don't. But I understand how the language might sound like that. It can be interpreted like that. And all I can say is I'm sorry for the misunderstanding, but that's not what I'm trying to communicate.
So you're visiting our beautiful country again in a couple of weeks?
Yeah.
It's the last weekend of June or the 1st of July, or when is it?
Oh, goodness. I think I arrive on the 22nd of June.
Okay, the day the summer starts.
Yeah, and then we have an 8-day retreat in Portugal here,
Okay.
August 24th, which will be, just a sweet time.
Yeah?
Just a sweet time.
How does that work? Is it a silent retreat?
I'm sure there will be some silence involved. Really, it's a space for people to come and rest in a deeper sincerity contained in their heart, and to kind of drop a lot of mental nonsense and connect with something that's more true, and then let that do whatever it's going to do.
And how does that work practically?
Well, we have, there's yoga and meditation in the morning, for those that appreciate that. And then twice a day we'll sit in satsang. And then there might be some group activity, some workshops. And then we'll have some music probably, and just hanging out. Amazing food.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Vegetarian?
Yes, I believe so. My friend, who is an amazing chef here in Lisbon, Anna Katerina, the Zen chef, she's coming up to cater that, and she just does, oh my God, such a phenomenal job. It's like my dream is to be able to just put her in my back pocket and take her everywhere I travel.
Personal chef.
Yeah, and just cook for me. It would be amazing.
And is it like in satsang as we are sitting? Do people get on stage with you and ask questions, or do you talk and then last part questions? Or?
Yeah, it's not very common that I do the come up on stage thing. And granted, it's relatively small numbers, and so it's not necessary, I guess. I don't know. But usually the format is I just share from my heart, not really knowing what I'm going to say. My play in that is to forget everything that I think I know, and then ask myself, what's the most sincere thing I can say right now? And then speak from that place, and then we end up in some sort of dialogue and Q&A and reflection. Just very kind of spontaneous, but there is somewhat of an outline. I think the theme of this retreat is cosmic support, tapping into the creator within. Which is kind of geared to those who want to express themselves in this world, whether it's in a business format or just creatively, to get out of the way and see what life is trying to do. What is the love within, and how is it trying to be shared, and to eliminate the perceived difficulty that's trying to hold on to something that's not true. And you really get to see how effortless it can be.
It reminds me of a great quote by the late Dr. Wayne Dyer, who doesn't live anymore. He said, "Don't die with your music still in you."
Yeah.
That really touched my heart when he said that.
Yeah, and oh my God, that's so beautiful. It's so beautiful because the potential for the human being to open and let this song to be sung is fascinating, and seeing not only through my direct experience but people that I've been around, to watch them open and to watch this song emerge that they were so terrified to sing, so afraid of all of these things, and then to find out that there's nothing to be afraid of. It's really, really fascinating and very human. This is what I love most about it. It's very human. It's not about, oh, I want to be blissed out and I want to have a spiritual experience. It's, no, what's really here? You know, to embrace all the stories believed without denying them, to embrace the insecurity, to embrace the fear, and see what it's pointing to. It's so beautiful.
Great. One last thing, it reminds me about the sincerity. There's a singer who also passed away some time ago, Andrew Cohen.
Yeah.
I saw a documentary about him, and he was on stage singing his song, and about 3 songs he said, "Sorry, I don't feel it today. I can't perform this now for you."
Right.
So it really, that was so sincere that he said, and he said to people, "You can get your money. I cannot sing these songs today for you. It doesn't. I don't mean it or something." And he got off stage.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So you ever in satsang and you think it's not coming from itself today? I have to make it shorter or quit, or.
You know, I'm almost tempted to say every single time there's a play of that. It's like there's always, not always, but a lot of the time, this nervousness that arises. That its deep sincerity is, I don't know what to say. And I'm here scheduled to talk over a weekend for 18 hours. And I have no clue what to talk about. And that nervousness is, in a way, inviting me to acknowledge the truth. That you're right, I don't know. And so can I move forward in that? Can I still show up from that sincerity and not know? And from that space, I find something more sincere comes out. And I always end up talking about something that I never planned on talking about.
You're also amazed sometimes, or maybe surprised by what's going on.
I would say every time. Every time. Yeah, because there's a deep sincerity that as I'm sitting there, and I'll start in silence, and inside there's this acknowledgement, holy shit, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what to say. And then there's this poetry that begins to flow. And again, this is the approach for life. You know, I kind of show up, and it's like the deep sincerity is, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, like, how to be a human being. I just know that I'm here. And everything that I've tried to make happen or tried to work has failed. And so am I going to keep trying? Yeah, sometimes I do. And then I fail again. And so this is the teacher. It brings me back to this deeper sincerity that says, you know what? I don't really know what I'm doing. This is what it seems like, but I don't really know. And in that, it releases a great burden of having to pretend like I know.
But there's a big, how do you call it, taboo on that.
Yeah.
Saying that you don't know. What? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, and this is the fear, because the social conditioning is that you're supposed to know. And it's like the last thing you want is someone to ask you what's your plan in 10 years and to not know. You know, who wants to be that guy? But for me, it's not an issue of should or should not. It's an issue of what's true. And the truth is if you ask me what should happen tomorrow, I don't know. Because when I look at my life, as far back as I can remember, there's only been one thing that I was worried about the whole time. That I wouldn't make it to this moment right now. That somehow I wouldn't get here and that all would be incredibly well. And that's the truth right now. And so it worked out. And that was the only thing that I wanted, was wholeness. I wanted to know all is well. And through the journey of my whole life, nothing has gone how I thought it was going to go.
That's your answer.
So what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I see that in it not going how I thought it was going to go, I discovered the most profound things. Through it not working out, I discovered a deeper devotion for what's real and what's true, for the heart. And that didn't come by getting what I wanted. And so why am I going to keep trying to get what I want, thinking that that's the answer? Rather than realizing, my goodness, life, you know. You know what my heart desires. You know what this is really all about. And so I give this back to you. And the invitation is to give the self back to the self, or back to life, which is the acknowledgement that I don't know, but something knows. It's like, how does this forest be the forest? I don't know.
And the forest itself doesn't know.
Exactly. You can look out and say there's 10,000 things and think that you have to manage them. But you realize that it's not 10,000 things. It's one thing, breathing. And in every appearance of thing is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing in order for the forest to be the forest. And when you see the whole forest, you say, my God, that's amazing. That's beautiful. And so I give life back to life, and seeing the wholeness of what it is and saying, thank you. I see you. You're amazing.
So is it just about showing up and being available? Or even that's too much words?
I mean, it is. But, I mean, it's radical self-honesty. And it's not necessarily a path that's all smiles. And I think that's the misunderstanding. It's like, for me, this has been a heart-wrenching journey, man. The amount of tears that have been shed over this discovery and the collapse of who I think that I am is astounding. The pain and the heartache is in its own way very real for the human experience. And so I think that this needs to be taken into an account, because I hear people say, yes, I want to see life like that. I want to see the truth. But do you really? Do you want to really see everything that you're holding on to collapse and see that it's not real? Do you want to see that you're not really hiding, even though you think that you are? Do you want to see that who you think you are is irrelevant? No, you don't. No, you don't. And this is why we have a hard time. And there's a complete innocence in that. I mean, it's not wrong or bad or anything. It's, do you really want to see that? And this is why people tend to wake up to this through painful experiences. Because it's the suffering of life that attempts to wake you up. Because we're suffering over that which isn't real. And so the invitation through the suffering is to let go of what's unreal and connect with what's real. The suffering isn't necessarily required, but it is the teacher for sure. And so I really invite people that this isn't an inquiry of feeling blissed out. It's not about being happy. It's about devotion to what's real and what's true. And it's not about you at all. And this is what, in a way, most people are looking for. It's like what they're looking for in life. They want it to be about them. You know, if you take on this quest or that quest, you're trying to find yourself. You're trying to validate yourself. You want to tell a good story about yourself. You want to fix the inadequacy. And so it's seen as a very personal thing. And from my experience, it's not. It's the sacrifice of what is seen to be personal, so that what is real can be what's real.
I once heard the comparison with the butterfly.
Yeah.
And before it's a butterfly, it's a
caterpillar. Yeah.
And the between the caterpillar becoming a butterfly,
right.
That's a real ugly process.
Yeah, it is.
with a sort of goo that you can even define what it is.
Yeah.
And then a beautiful butterfly comes out of this.
Oh my God, this is so great. This is such a great analogy for life. We get totally destroyed and then transformed. And it's not a one-time process. In its own way, it's a daily process. It's a moment-by-moment process. It's an annual process. It's everything. It's a constant breathing in and out. And so there isn't this moment of one transformation, because that transformation will lead to another transformation, and there'll be the same path of destruction, you know, as one continues to transform. And what I tell people in the insight that I share, that this isn't about you fixing your life. It's not about you taking this insight into the future. It's seeing what's true right now, letting this touch you right now, and letting that be the point, rather than trying to take this with you to protect your future, which is going to miss the point.
Great. One final question. This interview, it almost feels like a dance.
Yeah.
How does it feel for you?
You know, man, to do this interview with you today blows my mind. Because it's like for the past week or two, I've been in this really kind of playfully difficult space. And where there just hasn't been much clarity at all, and lots of pain and internal heartache and whatnot. And then just over the past couple days, I've been seeing the humor in it all and the insanity of it all. And it's just perfect timing to come and have this dance with you, you know. And so it's just a great example that as I'm sharing these things with you now, that in their own way might have their beauty and poetry to them. It is birthed through, you know, the pain of being human. And so it's just right on time, right on time. And so in that, I'm unendingly thankful for the play of being human, which can appear to be profoundly ugly at times, only to expose the profound beauty of what it's been the entire time.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I hope to see you in the Netherlands. And
Yeah,
let's
man.
enjoy this beautiful Portuguese weather.
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
Kon je het een beetje volgen?
Ja, supergoed.
Mooi.
Heel mooi.
Sitting here with Georgie on the couch in Vinkeveen. I just talked to your. Are you married? Your husband?
No.
No. Your how do you call it? Boyfriend then? Bart.
Love of my life.
Yeah, the great love of your life. You just did a couple of meetings in Haren, Groningen. You often come to the Netherlands to talk about this stuff. And when I say this stuff, what is this stuff you guys talk about? Can you explain that in a few sentences?
In the broadest terms, it's the art of living.
That's it.
Really?
Yeah.
But you know, then we need to look at what life is and what's living.
Mm-hmm.
We're not bringing a message of escaping or transcending or being there.
Mm-hmm.
We're very much bringing a message of being here.
With what is?
Being here in the sense of not with what is, but being here and sinking into the here and really falling into that space where the here itself becomes a kind of miracle of phenomena of itself. You know, what is there's some distance.
Mm-hmm.
And in the here, there is also zero distance. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Could you say being here as what is? Is that maybe, that feels a little more closer?
Again, being here, yes, you can say as what is.
Mm-hmm.
But being here as what is includes everything that's passing as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's being here in a physical body. This is one of the few things which is totally clear. We are somehow, right now, in a physical body.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the physical universe. And in this here, we're perceiving through the physical senses. So the here is behind all of those impressions of what is. So whatever impression we get of what is,
Mm-hmm.
even the impression of our most finest being, it's still an impression. And the here is behind that also.
Yeah, that makes no sense, but it feels it feels good. And is that the same?
In what way doesn't it make sense?
Well, I find my mind like fighting with that.
Yeah.
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 It still tries to earn a position for itself.
Yeah.
You know, exclusive space.
Yeah. Yeah. So, in that space, which is of the here, is contained the now, in a sense. And the now is that mind. You can't be in the now elsewhere.
Yeah.
And the now is very much the whole dimension of time, as well as being central to our thinking processes, how we construct reality, how we make sense of reality. And it's central to the story. In a way, the past and the future is a construction of a story.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, we know that form, our body, is a condition of not only time, but also of space. Everything that we can see is a condition of time. It has a certain amount of time and a certain amount of space which it takes up. So the experience of the now is really an incredible doorway to opening the mind and to sinking to the silence and stillness in and around thinking and imagination. But we're not done there, because there's also this aspect of space. This is how we are composed. At least it's how form is composed.
Mm-hmm.
So the realization of the now by itself opens up the dimension of space. We drop into this area of being, of feeling. How much space do we take? What's contracted there? What's the weather there? How does it feel? So the realization of space, many talk about this, and it's a different realization from the realization of the now.
Mm-hmm.
The now is very much this awakening realization. And they very often use the word consciousness for this, and it's kind of put in a duality with sleep, which is not really true. But there is this awakening experience of becoming conscious in the now, and the collapse of the past and the future.
Mm-hmm.
Those who have moved into the realization of space more will talk about endless expanse, boundless awareness, being everything, being all things, about being in general, being as part of the big being. They're looking through the eyes of the heart, they're listening through the eyes of the ears of the heart. They're moving through the realization of space. In the here, time and space come together as form, which is us really here now, for real. You know, no more tripping on awareness or consciousness here, not excluding anything. Not even excluding the absence of consciousness or awareness. And that degree of realization really opens up the physical dimension, the realization of the physical body. It has the potential to liberate the fear of death, which doesn't mean that we're not afraid of death anymore. It means that we find freedom within that which is passing, including the body. So this is, when we talk about the art of living, the life which all of this is, this form is alive, then we're talking about how to be home everywhere. And we know this, we know that wherever we go, we're always here. There is this fallback position. You know, we can have the most incredible experience, and we're here. Still we're here.
Yeah.
We don't kind of evaporate because we're enlightened and manifest elsewhere. We're still here. We can, the next morning, have an argument with our partner and feel incredibly rubbish about ourselves, and we're still here. It's the same. It's a continuum. The next afternoon we can fly to San Francisco. We're still here. It doesn't move. It's a continuum. It's here even in the depths of sleep. And it's here when we awake. It's here if we're deeply in illusion, in busy mind. And it's here when we're in stillness. So we're trying to open that gate of liberation, where it's possible to be within the world of duality, with all the real stuff, the feelings, the emotions, the suffering, which, everybody suffers, grief and loss and pain and fear and anger. But when we are in this space of the here, even behind consciousness, because it includes sleep, it includes coma, then life itself finds a harmony there. It's not the only thing happening. We don't get entangled. We're at home, also in terrible circumstances and also in good circumstances. We don't get lost. But we don't. When I say we don't get lost, it doesn't mean that we're pushing away anything, or pushing away our sexuality, or pushing away our anger, or pushing away our fear. We're simply calm in it.
The eye of the storm.
Yeah. The eye of the storm that can't see itself. You can only, all the thoughts, all the impressions, all the feelings, all the experiences of awakening and enlightenment and whatever are the storm around the eye.
And does the eye need the storm to know itself?
That's a very beautiful question. I would have to ask, what do you mean by knowing?
Well, sometimes now I go to knowledge. I read in a book or heard from another teacher, it said that this is all just God playing hide and seek with himself. So that, let's say that the eye is God, so God pretends to be the storm, or pretends to be you and me and the camera and the couch.
Maybe he's playing hide and seek with his wife.
Yeah, that could be, yeah. But then there's still duality. There's always this talk about oneness, or one without the second. I heard from The Love of Your Life that your next book is about duality. So this site is about non-duality. What is for you the difference between the two? I know non-duality, duality, everything is one, and then duality, there's the opposites. But how are you explaining this to people? Is there such a thing as duality? That's my question. Is
there such a thing as difference?
Yeah.
Is more the question.
Okay.
Let's take the now, the power of the now. So all we have is now. So time is totally transient. Whatever this illusion of time, it's passing, it's passing, it's passing, and all there is this now, this opening, this doorway to something existential. So what we could do with that, because we have dualistic minds, if you could say all there is now, the rest is not real. So the now is real, and all the stories and all the history and all of creation actually is not real. It's an illusion. This is God playing hide and seek with himself.
Yeah.
So that's a new duality, and and what is a position of truthfulness becomes an escape door from some kind of human responsibility. What's also true at the same time in the now is that every single moment of now is eternal. It never gets lost. Nothing.
And why is that?
It seems to be a basic law that which is created never gets uncreated. And what's happening is that perception, consciousness and awareness is moving through. And what's unfortunate, and this is where we are in the development of mind as a species, is that we identify with that. We identify with the particular impressions of consciousness at that moment. Which is also okay, that is forever. But what is here never ceases to be. You know, if you look back in your memory and you look at moments when you were really here and now, really awake, isn't it true that you're there forever? That this is something so alive in memory, so much more alive than lesser.
Yeah. You can recall it, and then it's again.
It's alive.
Alive, yeah.
Yeah. So this is also why it's so important to move from the dimension of the now also to the spatial dimension, to the realization of space. So we said that the here contains the now. Space, in a way, is the container of time. So when we move down from the head to the layer of feeling, we cannot access that dimension without being in the now. We cannot feel what we're feeling later. If we feel what we felt yesterday, we're feeling it again.
Now. Yeah.
So it's not really a mind game to go into the now. All we have to do is feel. And then the realization begins to happen with the curiosity of what is it that feels. Can we feel that which is able to feel love? And can that be felt?
And is that something that is possible for all and everyone? Or do you have to be gifted to feel that?
To feel love?
To feel that thing, that which feels love.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely possible for everyone. You know, now many people are doing mindfulness, for example. But there was a time when those same quantity of people would close their eyes, yes, and they would see nothing there because their eyes are closed. No, almost like a wall of nothing, because the program was so deep that when you close your eyes, you see nothing.
Yeah.
And now, it's more and more people because we are one, so we have an effect on each other. It's a domino effect. Closing their eyes and looking into the inner world. So it's the same with feeling. You know, the first time, and this is true for many, you say, "What are you feeling now?" They will say nothing. It's almost anesthetic. It's closed. But just that invitation to feel whatever is happening now and to explore is going to bring awareness to something more truthful, something that's happening, some kind of feeling. And it moves very, very quickly. So that awareness which is brought to it, it feels good, just the awareness.
Yeah.
There's a relief in it. There's a closer connection with your qualities, with being, with truthfulness. So that in itself awakens this new dimension. And by degrees it becomes easier, but often, of course, what happens is that there's a reason why people are anesthetized here, and that's because it's been shocked, it's painful. It hasn't been educated. How often in schools do we say to our children, "What are you feeling about this?" as opposed to "What do you know about this?"
Thinking about this, yeah.
So often what can happen is, especially for spiritual seekers, that they find the silence, it drops down into this layer of feeling, and there is an openness because it's the now. So there's an openness in feeling, in experience, and they meet pain. They meet an old pain, because old pain is in the now, right? It's always alive, it's just that we're not feeling it.
Yeah.
It's always there until it's felt, and then a transformation begins. So they meet an old pain, and sometimes it's some kind of pain, and it doesn't even have to be from this lifetime, it can be from the generations that is carried through the family.
Yeah.
So they meet this thing which must never be felt, like betrayal, some kind of horror. And they're so deeply programmed this should never be felt that they run from it back to the mind to look for the spiritual awakening again.
Yeah.
They're clinging to that state. But in that sense, they're leaving themselves behind from here downwards. So sooner or later, these feelings, they wait forever.
Yeah, they have to be felt.
They wait forever.
Yeah. Is that the same Eckhart Tolle talks about, the pain body? Or how do you see pain? Is pain clustered in a center, or is it in the organs? Where is pain in the body?
It's a very interesting question. It is felt at first through areas of contraction. It's like you can feel from here outwards, let your awareness expand, and you can feel, without even knowing the content, it doesn't even matter actually what the content is. You can feel, for example, I can feel here that there's still a contraction of guilt. That's normal, because humanity is condemned, so a little bit.
Yeah.
So you feel the contraction, which is there. And the art is to really just allow it. Now, if we already can understand that nobody ever said, and this is where the mind is coming in, that we have so much space and that our being, our sense of space ends with this guilt, which is here, contracted. You can also, you don't need to heal the guilt immediately or deal with it. Actually, it's a shared guilt. You can just carry it. But to expand beyond it, around it, and even through it. Because the beautiful thing about perception is it's ours. And space, you can take the tiniest bit of space and go through this contraction. You can become finer than the contraction and travel through it with your feeling. The realization of space isn't just about infinity, it's also about zero distance, which means that you can go to zero distance with any contraction.
Pure intimacy.
A step beyond intimacy. Really.
Yeah,
really.
Intimacy
really
is not
close.
Real close.
Yeah, intimacy is still a function of space. It's beautiful, it's absolutely beautiful, but it's still a function of space.
Yeah.
Behind that there is, the next layer is really compact, holding the physical unity which is here. From somewhere in space we are just one particle, this planet. So we can really go to zero distance. And of course what happens then is it's a great expansion of awareness.
Yeah. There's a colleague teacher of yours who says that the mental institutes are full of, how she calls it, cosmic vacuum cleaners. So let's say the people who are so open that you talk about the collective guilt, but they feel the collective pain, they feel the whole bunch of it. Immediately my mind says, that is not fair. Why should those people feel all the guilt, feel all the pain, and the other people are just walking happily through life? How come? How come we don't all get our fair share of the collective pain, the collective guilt, the collective sorrow?
Well, there's many ways to look at that. One is that, let's say, we are fully awakened, enlightened and self-realized, and we are totally free of this planet. Would we come back?
I don't think so. Why should we? Or just out of compassion?
This is the thing. So, I feel that many of us are here now out of compassion. We, beyond all of, when you really let go, let be, and go beyond everything, and I mean beyond every spiritual trip as well, to that place of utter existential, no hope, to that, and even leap behind that, to just being pure non-perception. And here, of course, it's a subtle game because, and I think this is what Nisargadatta meant when he said, I am that. It's a subtle game because the universe kind of turns inside out. All you can see is the impressions, and that's when awareness is moving forward again, but you can jump back again and see the impressions of what that is bringing forward. So one of the first finest impressions that brings you out of that is care. Such a deep, deep, deep unconditional care for all that is. So out of that care, we will take on the karma of maybe a family of generations, to take it on ourselves. We will take on the challenge of a particular thought program or a particular kind of abuse, or even of bringing freedom to the area of cruelty, which actually would mean the disappearance of cruelty. We're working on it as a human species. Mm-hmm. We're not there yet. For every person who is in the most horrific cruelty, they are there. It's seen. It's seen. The moment it's felt, the moment they, at whatever stage, agree to suffer this, they are there. Now there is another place of cruelty, where perception, especially consciousness, averts its eyes. And this is one of the big traps of non-duality.
Yeah.
You know, the aversion to suffering.
Yeah. The denial.
It's an illusion.
Oh yeah, it's not there.
Yeah, I'm all right, I'm enlightened.
And you are not.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so now let me tell the crowds of suffering masses about this, and that's my service, but I'm okay. So how non-dual is that? To have that separation between yourself and the whole?
Yeah. So could you say that there are quite a few teachers who speak about this still from an egoistic standpoint?
I think we all speak about it sometimes from an egoistic. The ego is always there because it's among us. In the play of form, the dance of form, there's always a kind of measuring thing which is happening. It's in a way, it's how we attune to each other. Am I better or worse? And it's also how we are inspired by each other. And when it becomes toxic competition, it's how we learn what we're not. We suffer in competition and we learn what we're not. We learn to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
So I really feel that the ones who are teaching, all of them, are doing it because they care. And they are dedicating who they are, what they are, their form, to a service which will help people. And the problem isn't the ones that teach. The problem is the ones that say, I am a great teacher, but I'll do it later when. Because I'm not ready yet, I'm not worthy yet. First I need to reach this stage, first I need to get there. And they retract themselves from the world, and this is a closure of compassion, and in a certain stage it's a contraction of the heart. And this leads to a kind of pretense which can be quite destructive, especially in spirituality.
Yeah. So all the criticism on, for example, the things my friend Paul Smith does, the Advaita cowboy, some people say it's not deep enough, it's too simplistic.
Yeah.
You say every form is okay in which this is communicated.
If there is freedom in form, if there is truly freedom in being here in form, and that's the only freedom there is, a freedom which is conditional on not being here in form or taking a particular form isn't freedom at all. No. It's in a false duality.
Yeah.
And the playfulness that he has, and the playfulness Lisa has, shows they are very much channeling that freedom, that unconditional aspect.
Yeah.
And people always reject. Rejection is among us. Rejection is a big part of the social field. And who cares? It's like the buck has to stop here. And for people who are afraid of rejection, who are thinking they can do more to help others, maybe have a satsang in their house, or maybe open up and really dissolve this barrier between themselves and others in a certain way. Often rejection is the thing which holds them back because it hurts like hell. But if we don't allow that pain, we don't realize it. We don't realize it as the game that it is. And that means that we tend to reject others. So it gets passed around. Yeah. Reject, reject, reject. And we see this in the world, and this is what's leading to war. This is what's leading to that cruelty. This basic need, because the pain is so great here, to throw it at the other.
Yeah. It gives us a certain kind of relief. Yeah. When I tell that it's your fault, I feel right for one moment.
Yes, a short-term fix.
Yeah.
So even if we take a little particle of the pain of rejection and allow it to feel it, we are really changing the vibration of the whole. We're stopping this suffering.
Yeah.
We're doing a bit to change it, and we don't need to actually, go out and teach or anything, but just being able to be at peace with rejection.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, if you're at peace with rejection, you're not in the mind. You're at peace with the pain. And secondly, if you're not at peace with the pain of rejection, it's anyway there.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have any peace around it.
Yeah.
It's not like it takes it away.
Yeah.
It doesn't. We can't heal rejection by rejecting rejection.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
We can't heal rejection by rejecting the rejection. Yeah. And Georgie, what do you think about and feel about all those teachers who meet each other at, let's say, Science and Non-Duality Conference, and they go on a rampage to say, well, he hasn't seen it, she has seen it, he hasn't seen it. I, as a seeker, could think, well, this is rubbish. If those people are still making fun of each other, what is this enlightened thing worth?
Yeah. Well, on one level, it's a community. So all communities, let's be for real, they are active social fields.
Yeah.
So there's a fun in it, and there's a joy in it.
It's like the same with the monkeys on the rock.
Yes, we are monkeys.
Yeah.
We are.
So that will never stop.
Actually, the monkeys are better than us.
Yeah, it's more clear.
They're less destructive.
Yeah.
Because they're not there in this mind thing yet so much.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. It's going to be there. The social field is here.
Yeah.
This social field with this game of acceptance and rejection and belonging and better and more and less and worse and all of this jiving around.
Yeah. Just seen as not guilty. How do you call it? Innocent.
Yeah. At the same time, often the ones who are really carrying the energy in such events are the participants.
Yeah.
They listen. The listening is containing far more than the speaking.
Mm-hmm.
He who knows how to listen hears not only, he's in a position of receptivity of life, he hears not only what's coming in, but also his own thoughts. There's much more, when you move into pure receptivity, you're full of the whole world. And there is so little ego there from that position that it is the participants that are the teachers in a way. It's upside down.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, what would we all be in Science and Non-Duality if there weren't participants?
Yeah, nothing.
It would be a nice dinner party, maybe. But,
Yeah.
And then there is this other aspect, which is that as things are right now, and one of the beautiful things about SAND, Science and Non-Duality Conference, is that it's breaking this, is that each person has their awakening, and then they become an island. And what SAND is doing is bringing forward much more working together. And that is so important, because if you're really going to the realization of non-duality, you have to be able to work together. When I teach together with Bart, it's not easy all the time, especially at the beginning, to find a form in teaching as a man and a woman together.
Yeah.
But we're teaching about unity of life. And if we can't sit there together as a man and woman in unity, then where do we begin?
Yeah.
And the way to do it is to just do it. Do it and suffer it until it refines. Suffering purifies.
Yeah. Even if that is on stage in front of 20, 30 people.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a Dutch Advaita teacher, Alexander Smit, who once said that for women, this is just the dessert. They know this already, they feel it, and that the problem is that the men who come to the meetings go rationalize it and think about it. How can that be? Start asking questions about quarks and quantum physics. Is that the same at your meetings also, that the women who come there, it's for them, it's already clear, but they just come and get a taste of it again and then leave and don't start? Or are women as mental about this as men? That's my question, I guess.
There is a difference in form, in the way men are much more vulnerable and much more suddenly they fall. And women are as if much more emotionally open, but this is also a kind of strategy to stop getting to the fallback position. that position of emptiness. We have a very strong focus on dissolving that duality between male and female. You know, a flower is both. You know, and we are both. And so what actually tends to be happening is that the women are allowing their male side, and the men are allowing their female side. And out of this allowance, there's a position taken behind that core duality of male and female. And that's where stillness is, and a lot of freedom. Yeah.
You speak a lot about stillness. Was Eckhart Tolle one of your main teachers, or how did it come about for you? What was the great search? Was there one particular guru, or was it just life itself?
Well, my first memory is an experience of awakening. So that's a bit strange, you know, like, you know, I was 2 years old in bed, and been put there by my mother in the middle of the daytime to sleep. And I'm lying there looking at this little body and thinking how strange it is that these little legs have grown a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just learning to talk. And I was thinking about guitars. It's the age of the guitar, you know, the 60s, late 60s. And I started saying the word, I must have just learnt the word. I started saying the word guitar, 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 until it had absolutely no connection to the object.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the syllables. And this was like curious, you know, like, and so I took my name, Georgie. I started saying my name, Georgie, 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 Georgie. And then suddenly I wasn't Georgie. And so who was I? And there was this kind of consciousness. This is how awakening tends to move. You become conscious that you're not this. And then you say, what are you? And so you become conscious of consciousness, and it jumps like this.
Yeah.
Into this expansion, which is a kind of reset and a feeling of homecoming. So in a way, for me, language is very, very important, and I'm a writer, but this is all because that connection between word and the thing it signifies was broken. It never really got formed that strongly. It's what made me a poet as well. You know, it's just temporary naming.
Yeah.
So a lot of identity never got built, and out of that I chose a kind of life, and also had a kind of karma in my childhood where it was constantly disrupted, and there's an easiness in moving through different forms, different identities. I converted to Judaism, I changed my country, and back again, and it's so that's the awakening. But although I can go into that, and then this I really recognize in the power of the now, and it's such an affirmation to read it. But still, I couldn't live like that all the time. There's moments of awakening and then gone again into this, into the sea of entanglement, feeling entanglement. Stuff's happening, grief and this and that, and longing and sadness and all the feelings. They kind of take you out of consciousness. And so there I kind of began to live a life. But I wasn't done yet. Awakening wasn't enough. I could always, like a bubble, be open to universal genius, the whole works, no problem, you know, go to Oxford, the whole quickness of mind was available, and the consciousness, and be in the now, and all of this, but that wasn't enough, because here there was such a pull of wanting to love and be loved, and to feel stuff. And of course life happens, so it gets more and more contracted, because I wasn't here in the area of feeling awareness. So at a certain stage I had a nervous breakdown and anxiety attacks and panic attacks. I was working as an investigative journalist, and it gave up the system because it wasn't supported. And that's a kind of dark night of watching the apocalypse of the ego break down, and then feeling the pain which has been waiting to be felt.
Yeah.
And experiencing a kind of rebirth of itself out of that emptiness. Yeah.
the lotus flower who rose from the mud.
Yeah.
Was it a long process, or that's what I sometimes think? How long have to feel this pain? Is it if someone could tell me, well, that's for let's say you carry a child for 9 months, you have to get rid of this pain for 9 months, and then it's done. Is it done for you now? Have you felt all the pain that had to be felt, or are painful things still coming up, and you have to sit down and?
I think if there's any time when it's done, it's when you absolutely are able to allow all pain to move through you. I tell you partly why. It's not yours. You know, you walk into a room full of extremely sad people and you feel the same sadness.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you don't even know what they're sad about. It's in this field of interbeing, and it's there to be felt. We're not separate in it. And at a certain stage there is a spaciousness and freedom there, because it's not separate. Meaning I can feel whatever feeling, dread or grief. It doesn't matter anymore even. I don't even ask, is this mine, or unless I want, I'm bored. And then I might, make a story from it. But it's a story, that's all it is. It's the same thing on the level of the mind. So it's an energy. It's existing energy energetically between the physical and the mental. There is also a energetic frequency here. It's the stuff of the world, and we care about it. It doesn't mean we go out there looking for all the suffering and inviting it in, but the stuff which is arising isn't for nothing. Life is so intelligent in what it brings forward at any moment.
I'm thinking about where we don't mind walking into a room full of happy people. We're having a party. You think, hey, let's join the party. Yeah. Hey, what a good atmosphere here. Yeah. Yeah. But when we walk into a funeral, we think, I have to get out of here. Yeah. Why is that? Is that ego which tries to avoid pain and gain pleasure?
It's all the bad stuff. It's shame, guilt, fear of intimacy. A lot comes up if we walk into a funeral. And again, there can be the most incredible grief of loss. And in the social field, there's many parts of that, the experience of losing a loved one, which is not admitted. There's relief, there's spaciousness. Yeah. There can be joy because you see your family again. Yeah. It's also a family occasion, a funeral, and you see them at such a depth of truthfulness and depth of feeling. Again, we crave to experience life. Yeah. So, but that's not allowed. You have to put on the side for it, right? So that's kind of the beginning of where we start to screw ourselves up, because we have to dictate from the head what we're feeling down here, what's allowed and what's not. So we're cutting ourselves up into little pieces while being very non-dual at a funeral. There is so much there.
I can remember a funeral where I don't know the right English word, but I got very, very amused by something, and I really had to put down the giggle, and my mother said, "Stop giggling, it's a funeral." Yes. But I was amused by, I think, some woman who wear a strange hat or something like that.
You see, this is where the mind keeps us so two-dimensional. You can be amused and sad at the same time. Yeah. At my father's funeral, he died when I was 14. Suddenly, he was an alcoholic. Suddenly, I'm in England. I was living in Belgium, and because the family was divorced, I come to my father's funeral, and I'm absolutely, this is the shock of my life. I'm in full-fledged trauma, crying in this dusty crematorium in suburban England. And the coffin arrives, and it's my daddy's inside. I hadn't seen him for a while because of the divorce. And the shock of it, and the horror, and the relatives that I hadn't seen since all of this was happening at the same time. And we sat there, and already the toilet paper I had was drenched. I couldn't even wipe the tears or the snot anymore because it was disintegrating, totally wrecked. And it's a crematorium, and the coffin is there on a conveyor belt kind of thing, like to go rolling into the furnace, right? And so it's there. And at a certain stage, this, because they weren't religious, so there was this kind of hired per hour religious guy. Yeah. who pretended that he knew him but didn't have a clue who he was and was waiting for the next one to come. And so he starts gesturing to the people behind the scenes to close the curtain around the coffin. So he starts going like this. And as he does this, the curtain starts to move as if he's got magical powers.
The magician.
And I'm going like from crying to like laughing my head off at like the surreality of it.
Yeah.
Why not? It's both. It's also funny.
Yeah.
Humour is really part of the game as well. And we can be soul-destroyed and laughing at the same time.
Yeah. You sometimes see that when people start crying for a lot of time, it automatically goes into laughter.
Yeah.
To put a little more light. Georgie, you are about to fly back to Israel, and you do meetings over there also with Bart?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I asked him also, almost in Dutch the same question. Is there a difference in communicating this message in San Francisco, in Belgium, in Israel? Or is it all the same?
People's reactions are different.
Yeah, of course.
And in communicating the message, a beautiful thing is happening with us right now. And if you'd asked me a year ago if I could do this, like just go into a meeting without planning anything beforehand and just let life speak through me, I would think, well, that would be one enormous leap of trust.
Yeah.
And now it's happening by itself.
Yeah.
So we don't know really what our message is until we sit down and begin to talk. And in that way, it's totally attuned to what's needed in that moment with those people.
Is that the same thing when I played as a club DJ? I could sit down in the afternoon for hours selecting all the songs I was going to play this evening. The crowd gave me the direction I had to go with the music, and sometimes I played totally different music. I just had to be there, have the tools ready, but the audience gave me the direction.
Yeah, and maybe it's not even the audience, maybe it's even
deeper.
I'm in wonder of it, really in wonder of it right now, how extremely intelligent life is. You know, our brains, they're good little old laptops, but basically life is a genius which is, in terms of moving through time and space with synchronicity and need, which is way beyond, all you can do is bow to it, trust it, trust the intelligence of life. It's the greatest healer, the greatest teacher, and I mean life force. I mean experiential life. I don't mean this life. I mean the life that doesn't end, regardless of whether we get born or die.
So the same force that is blowing the wind right now and raining and moving the trees is the same force that is doing this interview and conversation? That's what non-dual teachers say. It's just one thing.
They?
Yeah, some. They say it's just one thing moving everything. There's just one thing, the same thing that moves the clouds to the sky, moves you. It sounds like a very reassuring message. Sit back and enjoy the show. Or is that too simple?
Sit back and enjoy the show is a stage. There's also get up and be the show. While completely at the same time knowing that it's a show. Allow it. Allow, I was thinking about sexuality because I was watching the 70s thing downstairs of the music. Mm-hmm. The sexuality, the sexual energy is very much alive. Mm-hmm. It's part of life. It's not like to do with which partner what. That is all the time part of vitality, part of living. But if we try and control it or mess with it and don't listen to it or receive it or try and order it, then we get quite contracted. We get into quite a mess. We suffer. And there are these core dualities. So sexuality is there utterly as a function of the total absence of sexuality. So only out of allowing also the total absence, the total nothing happening, no horniness, no sexuality, no sex life, the whole, really allowing that, not freezing in it, but really, really allowing that, the sexuality emerge in its intelligent form of itself. And that doesn't mean, you know, going out and getting laid. It's emerging in a sense of the pure life force of human and the pure sensual pleasure of just being alive. You know, it's not a curse to be alive. It can, from a certain perspective, it can seem fearful, dreadful, suffering and all of this. If that's where we're investing all of our consciousness. But at the same time, you know, that you've got a pain in your leg, the rest of the body is in bliss, but we're just not paying attention to that. There's a blissfulness always in being here physically. If we believe that because somebody else is suffering, we should not feel bliss, if we're in that thought pattern, then we're really not helping the other person either. Again, it's this either-or configurations. We can bring bliss everywhere. Like we can bring love everywhere. Like at the funeral, if the people are really, really sad and we go and we have to be sad too, we're not helping. No. We can be with them in the sadness and still acknowledge that there's also happiness here. This is also for them. Because also in them there is a happiness. There's a happiness in every experience. Because we can experience.
Yeah.
Did I talk about sex?
Just a little bit.
It's okay, I'm in Holland.
Yeah, no problem at all. The next book is not about sexuality, it's about duality.
It's called Stillness of the Wind.
Stillness of the Wind,
Yeah, so that was an interesting...
yeah.
You know.
And you wrote several other books?
Only one. And Bart wrote another one.
Okay, and the titles are?
Bart wrote a book called The Gift, 7 Steps to a Happier Life, which is a beautiful, clear way to understand that we are here to share the qualities, the unique qualities which we're carrying right now, and to express them, to get that movement of expressing qualities into the world and receiving qualities from, to get this circulation between dimensions moving. It's very close to being, to share your qualities.
And your first book is
I Am Here, Opening the Windows to Life and Beauty. So this is a study of exactly what we've been talking about. It's more of a guidebook, like a navigational map to the world inside, between the dimension of consciousness and mind and time and awareness. In English we have 2 words, which is great, because even the words intuitively give that difference, which is feeling and felt experience and spaciousness, and the here, which is where we come down into the quantum physical realization of matter, because we're here for the matter.
We're here to matter or for the matter?
Both. It matters that we're here for the matter.
Yeah. Final question, because you guys have a plane to catch. I hope there's no delay because of the storm. Happiness. I just heard you say the word happy. For me, the search was 25, 30 years to find happiness in the world. Could you say that that shifts to bringing happiness into the world? Is that then the right way? Can happiness be found in the world, or can happiness be brought into the world? Or can it be both?
Both. But happiness found in the world is always going to be conditional, according to the conditions of the needs being met, and in a way it's dangerous because then it's also conditions of not losing anything. So you can be happy with a partner, but the partner will die at some stage, and you know that, or you will, and sorry, but that's kind of the deal. And so the happiness already begins to contract because the partner needs to be forever. So, and the happiness inside, the key to that is to allow that happiness is here, even if there's sadness. It's and it's deeper. So I, for example, remember driving and I was really in a angry entanglement, frustrated. Well, this is normal, I feel. And then I noticed that I kind of went deeper in, allow it, went deeper in it. And I met this happiness which is always here. It's quite a blessing. Some people have it more clear than others. But there's a happiness at the sadness.
Yeah.
There's a happiness at the grief. There's a happiness, and it's close to joy, but there really is a happiness at life. Yeah. And life is very much about learning, about experiencing. So in just allowing this and I was pretty miserable at that stage, so allowing that also I was secretly, even secretly for myself, happy in the misery, this opens up a whole new possibility. There's an expansion then. An expansion and of the misery, which it doesn't quite look like misery anymore, if you can be happy to be here, to be happy to be experiencing. And happiness is one of these beautiful non-dual aspects which leads by itself to others, to gratitude, to if you move from happiness, there's an expansion, so there's a sharing, there is an uplifting, and in that the world reflects back. You smile at somebody, sometimes they smile back.
Yeah.
There's a reflection back of that position.
Yeah.
And when we meet others who are sad, depressed, and we give up our happiness, it's even on a vibrational level taking away their way back to happiness.
Yeah.
Because we resonate together. That's not compassion.
Compassion is
being in the passion, which and in Christian terms passion means suffering, the passion of Christ. Being in this creation together, not disconnecting, not making a border, this is your stuff, this is my stuff.
Yeah. So the bottom line is to share everything, experience everything together.
Where we feel we meet a resistance,
Yeah.
even inside our own world or between ourselves and others, to allow it to be there, but be aware of it. Just be aware of it, and to be aware of what's behind it. The awareness of itself does the magic. Because the awareness will bring thoughts, and the thoughts will bring beliefs, and probably those beliefs are not relevant or useful anymore, and that in itself releases. There's a spiral that goes on. But the awareness, the allowance of what is critical, like you said at the beginning. Just allowing it. And allowing it just a little bit more inside.
Yeah.
All experience, in a way, does, even if it's bad experience, is cut us more deeply to the truth of who we are.
So no bad experiences.
Oh, they can be awful. But it shows us...
In essence, it's not bad. Yeah. It was a great talk. Thank you very much, Georgie. And have a great flight back to Israel.
Are you panicking? We late?
Ik zit hier met een hele vrolijke meneer. Die we voor het eerst, althans ik, zagen op televisie bij Jan Rijdt Rond. Zou je even voor mensen die dat niet gezien willen hebben, willen zeggen wie je bent en waar we het over gaan hebben?
Oké, ik ben Marcel Stegers. En we gaan het hebben over non-dualiteit. En er is zoveel over te vertellen. Wauw. Ik hoop dat we genoeg belangrijke punten kunnen zeggen.
Marcel, hoe oud ben jij?
Ik ben 34 eigenlijk. Maar eigenlijk ben ik altijd wel anders dan anders. Omdat ik door heel andere ogen heen kijk. Al sinds vroeger eigenlijk. Waarin bijvoorbeeld mijn familie mij niet zo goed kon begrijpen. En ik er qua gevoel een beetje alleen voor stond. En zelfs sinds vroeger begon ik eigenlijk mezelf te ontdekken in hoe ik anders was. En en zo werd ik eigenlijk steeds meer zelfbewuster van dingen. Wat ik bijvoorbeeld in de maatschappij, wat anderen als normaal beschouwen. Dat ik zo dacht van, ergens in gevoel klopt dat niet. Waarom zoeken mensen in de tijdelijke wereld naar iets wat hen voor altijd gelukkig maakt? Terwijl terwijl dat is al één ding wat ik al niet begreep. Maar dat zei je. Bij mij het denken is sowieso al anders dan anders. En en dat was voor mij al een extra uitdaging.
Hoe oud was je toen je dat voor het eerst dacht?
7 of 8.
Ja?
Ja, ik zal de thuissituaties niet over hebben, maar het is best wel moeilijk geweest vroeger. Buiten dat ben ik best wel hoogsensitief. En mijn ouders konden niet met mij omgaan. Dus nu gaat het al wat beter. Maar omdat ik mezelf heb leren kennen en ik er beter over kan hebben. Het was best wel een moeilijke situatie waarin ik heel veel verschillende emoties mocht meemaken op een heel jonge leeftijd. En veel mensen die vinden dat heel apart dat ik zoveel zelfkennis al eigenlijk heb. Wat iemand die al dubbel mijn leeftijd eigenlijk nog mee bezig moet zijn.
Ja.
Dus en dat...
Kunnen we zeggen dat jij verlicht bent, Marcel?
Ja, verlicht is eigenlijk iets voor als je bijvoorbeeld ergens mee zit. Weet je wel, dat je dan kunt loslaten, die emotionele bagage. Dus loslaten kan een heel moeilijke weg tot het hart zijn. Of een makkelijke weg. Het ligt er dan aan hoeveel waarde je eraan hecht. En daarin hoeveel meer moed je moet tonen om het te kunnen loslaten tot hier. Het is juist dat simpelste kan ontzettend vreselijk moeilijk zijn. Maar juist door jezelf te leren kennen. En niet met alles om je heen bezig te houden. Met andere mensen of situaties wat het juist moeilijk heeft gemaakt. Daarin, door jezelf en je zelfbewust te zijn. En het gevoel wat je in jezelf ervaart tijdens iets. Dus, dan wordt het op een of andere manier duidelijk. Zonder dat het verstand dat hoeft te begrijpen. En dat is zoveel meer waard dan dat het hier... Dan lost het zichzelf eigenlijk op. Want hier in het hart... des te meer je van het verstand, de afstand tot aan het hart, de eenheid. Het hart is de zetel van de ziel. En de ziel is deel van het geheel. Wat